So I always tell people to take a pause, and it's so hard to tell yourself to do that when you're in the thick of it, because it's like real life is coming at you. But you really have to pause and think about, not lamenting the things that got you there, because sometimes it's out of your control. And I think that's a lot of people now because of what we've gone through the past year and a half. But just kind of take a pause and say, okay, where am I right now? Let me not lament the past, but where am I right now? Where do I want to go?
Get around those obstacles and make room to create opportunities. You are listening to the Around the Way podcast. And now, your hosts, Kyle King and Kiana Williams.
Welcome to another episode of Around the Way podcast, where we help you get around your obstacles and find a way to redesign your life. We are here with Evelyn. How are you doing?
Wonderful.
You guys were backstage talking for like 30 minutes. How was the conversation?
Listen, we won't tell the details.
For sure. How has everything been going? Could you introduce yourself before we get started and tell, I guess, everybody how you're changing lives out here?
Oh, my goodness. Oh, so busy. So my name's Evelyn. I am the owner and operator of Dell Consulting Group. I'm also, my role there is a communication strategist, but I'm also the editor-in-chief of Substantial Magazine, which is a minority-owned and operated publication. We exist to tell the stories of influential minorities in our community. So as a natural storyteller, everything is a story to me. Okay. And if you're a creative entrepreneur, you probably know that it's a gift and a curse.
I love it.
Yeah.
Now, you started with communication strategist.
Yes.
What does that really mean to you?
So I help people to connect the dots to figure out how they are going to position themselves to present themselves to the world. What I found working, I started out doing public relations work, and what I found is that a lot of people wanted me to promote them, but they didn't know what they stood for. So we got to kind of do that homework and that background to get to that point where we're putting them out there and connecting them with opportunities.
Okay. Has this always been your background, or kind of like have you been pushed
Absolutely
into it?
Not.
I hear that all the time, literally.
So we were chatting beforehand, and I told, we were talking, and the only thing that I've ever wanted to do in life was be an attorney. So I was a political science major, pre-law fraternity, all that good stuff. That was my only focus. Wow. And somewhere along the lines, life took a detour. Long story short, I ended up being a stay-at-home mom. But of course, me being who I am, I couldn't just stay home and not do anything. Right. So I started volunteering in my community. Working with the American Cancer Society, working with some of the, I helped to build a charter school, all that good stuff. And one day I got a phone call from someone. He said, my name's so-and-so, a wide receiver in the NFL, and I need somebody to help me with my public relations work. And everyone keeps telling me that I need to speak with you.
Wow.
So I had a business before I had a bank account to put the money in.
Oh, that's a bar. That's a bar. I love it. So we're going to go back before we go forward, right? So I think there was a lot of things that just were unpacked right there. So you went from lawyer to stay-at-home mom to business before the bank account, but you talked a little bit about a detour, right? There was a major detour that you took. Walk me through that process when you were taking that detour.
Oh, are you sure you want to go down that road?
Let's do it.
Let me unpack this trauma. No, and I say this now because, you can look back at it differently, but that detour was a struggle for me. So I was, growing up, I was the kid who, or even in college, I was that girl who could miss class all semester long and still come in and get an A.
Wow.
So having a detour was not a part of my plan.
Literally. Literally.
Like I don't understand that type of life. But I had to really learn how to be flexible and mold to my environment. You think about like animals, how they adapt in the wild. You literally have to adapt to your environment. It's sink or swim.
Exactly.
So for me, having that game plan and having all those dots connected on paper, but you forget, I think a lot of times we forget those intangibles in life. So it's like you have the book sense, you have, education, everything, but then comes emotion, and to me, it was more important for me to take the time out to raise my two stepsons and just completely say, you know what, putting my career on pause and I'm giving everything to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we always talk about adapting, right? We always talk about being flexible and doing all of the necessary things to kind of pivot or transition. I feel like pivot in 2020 is like the number one probably word used, right? We got to pivot. So when you think about that though, I think a lot of people adapt and forget where they were working towards going. So walk me through the process of you learning how to adapt without forgetting what you were even working towards in the first place.
I think a lot of that is attributed to my family. So, and this is where I kind of started to see the value in it. So my two grandmothers were complete opposites. So my paternal grandmother, she actually just turned 100 years old 2 days ago.
Shout out.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Has she got the COVID vaccine? Because she's doing something right.
Listen, grandma has she's still with it. I can pick up the phone and call her. She's laughing and smiling. She has her TV schedule. She does not miss the haves and have-nots. She's upset that they're not coming back. Grandma's like, oh, you heard so-and-so? Yeah, you probably heard it on Facebook.
What do you know about Facebook?
Yeah, she knows, but she was never a career woman. She was, a mom, and, she stayed home. She grew her own vegetables, all that good stuff, whatever. And to me, grandma is still one of the most intelligent human beings that I've ever known, right? On the opposite of that is my maternal grandmother, who I'm her namesake, and the two of us were like peas and carrots growing up. She was the complete opposite. She came from Washington, North Carolina, went to college in the 50s when women, especially black women, did not go to college, moved to New York, and she worked her way up and was a banker on Wall Street. So, yeah. And when I tell you, when my grandmother walked into the room, people stood up and paid attention. She was no nonsense. And when she retired, she actually retired at I want to say 42 or something, really young. Yeah.
Wow.
She was just on it. And when she retired, she started working in her community and she just became very respected. But I also, when I got older, I saw that the reason why she was like that was not just because of her formal education or her job title. She just was a life learner, So she's like, okay, whatever I started out doing, I always wanted to do it because I wanted to take care of my family, or because I wanted to be the exception to the rule of black women from the South don't get to work on Wall Street. So she was constantly she'd pick up the phone and be like, I heard that there's this new thing called Twitter. What is this thing? So who am I talking to? So I think I had to really draw on that and looking at both of those women and how they took completely different paths, but still very purpose driven and making an impact in the world. That's when it hit me. You have to be able to adapt, but don't forget about those, that where you started out in the beginning.
That's good. That's good. And I love how you, I guess, painted a picture. And I can tell you're a storyteller. I love how you painted a picture because it's kind of two paths colliding into still the same destination, right?
But see, when it was happening, I was just all out of sorts. I lost my mind. I was like, this is not, I don't understand what's happening. So I think maybe from the age of 24, 25, I just was not myself because I felt like I had to have concrete things in place, achievements on paper. And sometimes, as you get older, you realize that just surviving and not throwing your life away is still an accomplishment, so you have to recreate what that looks like for you.
Wow. So that person that is 24, 25, that audience member that's listening right now, that was that golden kid growing up, but then they got slapped in the mouth and recognized that you aren't the perfect kid.
Right.
What would you, as the strategist, communicate to that person?
Well, I wouldn't say this when I was younger, but now the older me would tell them to continue to be yourself. Because I think a lot of times when people are acting out, so to speak, and you're in that stage where you don't know what you want to do in life or whatever, you're struggling with being comfortable internally, So figure out what it is that's your thing on the inside, and figure out how to make it work for you. I can use my son as an example. He was the kid that got in trouble in class every day because the teacher was teaching them physical science and he wanted to talk about genetics and stuff like that. And I'm like, Shane, it's not time yet, so and he was just struggling really hard, and just looking in his eyes and seeing that he was really in pain. I told him, I said, you're going to find your thing one day. I said, don't let me tell you what that is. I want certain things for you, but you have to find it. And if that means that you're accepting who you are that quirky kid, be okay with that. Like I accepted a long time ago, like I'm just not like anybody else. I'm quirky, I'm funny, I'm serious, I'm goofy, all at the same time,
Exactly.
So like, I think we feel like we have to be other people in life,
I think one thing that you said is powerful is like, it wasn't your time yet.
Yeah.
Right. And I talk about this story. I'll give the shortened version. When I stole my parents' car when I was 15 years old and ran it into the garage, called the cops, told them that somebody stole the car.
You went all the way.
No, literally. It was literally crazy story. But I tell this story to pretty much talk about, like, my parents didn't give me the keys. They didn't say no just because like I was young. They said no because I wasn't prepared. And I think a lot of people want to jump into the driver's seat of their lives or of a business or of a job or of an opportunity before you're ready. When we're first born, we sit in the car seat. Then you graduate to booster. Then you graduate to the back seat without the booster, then passenger seat, then driver, right? But with some type of policies or conditions in place.
Right.
So when you realize, when you say that, I guess my question for you is, what is one story in your life where you got slapped in the mouth because you recognize that it's not time yet?
That's hard to say because I had a lot of those moments. I think probably the first time that happened to me was the first time I went on academic probation.
Oh,
because
God.
I was
Tell me more.
I was always a straight A student, and I'm gonna blame it on one of my friends. So a girlfriend of mine, my best friend at the time, we were in school, and I remember she pledged that semester, and she was so excited, and we pretty much just like went on tour. We just didn't go to class or anything like that. So I thought I was going to do my normal thing of just, you don't have to go to class, just show up and take the exams. But somehow, I guess all my professors were like in cahoots with one another, and they're like, no, not this time around. Like, this is not going to happen. And I'm like, okay, how do I tell my mom that I'm, gonna have to take a semester off? I'm losing financial aid. I took the LSAT and like blew it out the water, but I'm on academic probation now. That was probably the first time, and my mother was like, "You're gonna figure it out. I'm not helping you." Yeah.
And what did that do to you?
Oh man, it made me feel like giving up. I really did feel like giving up. I didn't feel defeated. I just felt like I just didn't care. I'm like, whatever, I'll just find something else to do. And, I didn't realize it at the time, but I think I had like a chip on my shoulder. So, of course I continued to work and everything, but I wasn't still going after that professional job that I thought I was going to have. And it drove a wedge between me and my family. And because I was raised in such a tight-knit family, like that's when it really started to hit me, So then going into like later on, like 24, 25, going into a job because I got kicked out of school, and then being successful at that job, but then messing up again, losing my apartment, like just steamrolling.
It's like back to back.
Yeah, just all kinds of stuff like that. It just, everything came at one time. Getting older and going through that, I kind of went through similar situation, not necessarily my fault, but I was like, oh, wow, that's what this was. This is that 25-year-old. This was to teach me that at 40, you can do this. You can start over again,
Exactly.
So like literally at the age of 38, 39, I found myself starting over completely. Like getting divorced, moving to a new city, losing my clients all at the same time. Like literally every single client, just everything happened at one time.
Me and Kiana talked about, what was that, a few weeks ago, often now, that I feel like when God is getting ready to bless you with something, he has to clear the land, right? It's kind of like before a house is getting ready to be built, they got to clear the land so that they can level it out. And I think what you just said is so kind of like a picture of clearing the land. You lost jobs, divorce, all of this different transition happened. And I think a lot of people are going through that process now. It's kind of like we were talking, like the last month or so, the world's been back open. But a lot of them, are transitioning into new careers, new houses, new relationships, or ending the old relationships. So a lot of transition. So what would be, I guess, your recommendation or your process for somebody that is in current transition?
So I always tell people to take a pause, and it's so hard to tell yourself to do that when you're in the thick of it, because it's like real life is coming at you. But you really have to pause and think about, not lamenting the things that got you there, because sometimes it's out of your control. And I think that's a lot of people now because of what we've gone through the past year and a half. But just kind of take a pause and say, okay, where am I right now? Let me not lament the past, but where am I right now? Where do I want to go? And I think the other piece to that is also who's around you. So, I had to find out that sometimes being by yourself is better than having a support system.
Oh, talk more about that.
That was tough.
When was that realization?
That was, probably 39, 40 years old, when I was right when I was moving to Charlotte. And I felt like everyone had left me, but I remember one weekend, just staying at home, and I was crying all weekend long. And I called my girlfriend and I was like, I just want to let you know, I'm just really feeling really bad. I'm okay, but I just need a timeout. So if you don't hear from me, I'm okay. If it's an emergency, talk to my mom, because she's the only person that's going to know where I am right now. And that time out was so essential, because I just felt like I just refueled myself, because I had to evaluate, okay, you have all of these connections, but what is their role in your life? Because sometimes I think we have a preconceived notion about what someone is going to be in our lives, what they're going to offer. Sometimes that person is meant to be there for a season. Sometimes they're there to teach you a lesson that you're rebuilding. And that was honestly, after that, I had no money, but I was the happiest I had been in 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And I had to get there first before I could rebuild my business, because me going out trying to get a desk job or trying to rebuild my clientele when I have all of this stuff was not working. For
sure.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have this misconception that you can do it. And interestingly, in the scripture, it talks about you got to get your home right first before everything else. So I think it's I always say, you have to be a better person before you could be better in business or be better, a story creator or a storyteller, all these different things. And I love what you said about timeout, right? And it kind of reminds me of, shout out to Baylor for being the national champions this year. But it kind of as an ex-athlete, when we take timeouts, it's our time to recalibrate, right? So it's our time to talk to our coach, or in life, it's a time to talk to our mentors, or just talk vertically with God. So my question for you is, you've done a lot of recalibrating, you've done a lot of reflecting. What's one mistake that you wish you would have made sooner?
That I wish I had made. I think I wish I would have taken more chances, even though some of the things that I was trying to do, now looking back at it, I know that I probably would have failed at it. But I think I needed just to boost up that muscle, that you're not afraid all the time, I definitely would have taken more chances, because I went through periods of, just being stagnant, or okay, I've been there before, it didn't work, I'm not doing that again. I remember I had a really big contract with this sports agency, and I was representing 6 of their athletes. And this was my dream job. I've always positioned my business to where, I was doing public relations work, but it was always something that I had to know that the person was the right fit for me. So people that did charity work, things like that. And I remember looking at, just sitting home, because on Sundays during football season, I don't know you. I'm in front of the TV.
Nah, literally.
It's the pre-game, the post-game, everything. And then on Monday, I can't talk to you until 11:30 till that's over too.
Literally.
So I'll see you on Tuesday. But I remember just watching, and I saw that like all of my guys got playing time that day, and I was like, yo, this is crazy. Like I am on cloud 9. But that opportunity that looked like gold turned out to be like one of the worst experiences. Like, you know, just because of the way that business relationship just started to deteriorate. And I remember just feeling so bad about, you know, I can't believe that I lost like the biggest contract that I've ever had. And I felt so bad. And I was really like, what do I do now? Like, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to quit going into business. But what I did, instead of doing that, I realized that I had to realize what my role was and what the other person's role was too. So realizing that the blame was actually kind of shifted a little bit more so than what I thought. Like, because in the beginning, I'm thinking like, no, this is all you. You did something horrible to me. But then realizing that I positioned myself to receive that energy too. And I was like, okay, how do you stop that? But more importantly, how do you stop another young woman from experiencing what you just went through?
Exactly.
And I said to myself, I said, you know what? It's not up to you. I don't like, God is telling you, I don't care if you want to quit. It is not your choice. You have to do something else because you cannot let someone else have this happen to them. Yeah.
Love what you said about it's not your choice.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we don't really, I guess, reflect on the power of our choice. But there are a lot of times that are controlled by other people or other factors or other circumstances. And when I think about this next question, I guess the next question for me is, what is something that you have realized that you're choosing to do now? Could be a quality, could be a habit, could be a behavior that you know is critical for you getting to the next step in your life.
For me, that goes back to my spirituality. So, and I think this is where some people kind of get lost, you know, and it's like whatever your choice is, however you feel, that's up to you. But I learned to stop, to not be afraid to express that, you know. So a lot of people, you know, I have a personal Instagram, I have a business Instagram, and you try not to blend the two. But when I started to show more of my human side, and this is what I teach my coaching clients too, like when I started to show my human side, people were, you know, people gravitated towards me more. And I noticed that when I'm unapologetic about the fact that, because certain things that have happened in my life and the way I've bounced back cannot be explained by scientific terms. Like, it literally is not, you know, anything that I have done. It's because I'm just allowing myself to follow that purpose. You know, it's nothing that I did. I don't even think of, like, I don't even like to use the word success because I think of it's just my purpose of what I'm being told to do. But even people who are not believers will still want to work with me. Still have a lot of respect for me, still want to connect me with opportunities. So I think for me, that part of it, I just have to really own that part of it and just say that is what it is. And again, that's just another thing that can't be taught. You know, so I guess that goes back to kind of, you know, not being afraid to be yourself because you never know. You know, part of being, you know, because in the beginning, I'm like, I don't want to turn people off, you know. But then I'm like, well, what if I do turn people off? Because if it's someone who is not going to respect my love for God, then I don't really want to be around that energy anyway. So
that's facts.
Why am I doing that?
That's for sure. And I think, you know, one thing that we've talked about a lot on the podcast and just in personal conversations is your business has to align with the person, right? And I think there's all money isn't good money.
Yes.
I think a lot of times, you know, one of my mistakes and one of the mistakes that I wish I would have never made, or because it was definitely sooner, is just taking all money or being so focused on advancement, success, and revenue, being so caught up in a number that I'm trying to reach at the end of the month, where I really don't realize what that number is bringing me in regards to stress or demand or just things that just energies that I'm just not really, my spirit ain't really mixing with. So when you talk about like just being yourself, and I think that's a message that people hear, but I really don't think they really implement it because, you know, with social media, with different things, it's all these comparisons. Who are you? Like, who are you at the core?
It's
always that response that I get.
I'm laughing because I'm thinking, like, if you ask people, they will tell you so many different things. But I mean, that is who I am. I'm so many different things. I had to figure out who I was, because in my mind, I was this symbol of, you're the product of these, ambitious, Black families that came from the South and, migrated to New York and made it. To me, I was owning that title instead of saying, like, yeah, I am that girl, but I'm also, like, a quirky person. Like, I enjoy, like, out of all of my friends when I'm in college, we're sitting around talking and everything. I'm like laughing at jokes because I can quote the whole episode of Frasier, and they're like, "Who watches Frasier?" I'm like, "I watch Frasier." Okay,
hilarious.
Like, it's just, I'm like that. I'm a spiritual person. I love gospel music, but I also love Biggie and Led Zeppelin. Like, I'm just so many things.
Exactly.
And I think it just goes back to just me loving human beings, like, I just feel like very grateful for, like, all of the different interactions. One of my favorite movies is Love Actually. Have you ever seen that movie before?
I haven't seen that movie.
Okay. So it's actually kind of corny, like, but if you look at it, and at the end, they show these people, like, going through an airport, and they show them, like, reconnecting, like, we go pick somebody up.
I saw that movie.
Yes. And when you see all of the different types of relationships, it makes you, like, it made me stop and think. And I had this revelation one time I was watching that and showing, like, a kid with their mom and, like, somebody picking up their client, someone in love, like, just all the intricacies. Like, I'm just really fascinated by that. I'm just fascinated by our existence on Earth, like how we interact with people. So I was always that inquisitive kid that just was looking to learn something new. Like, yeah.
I love that. We're going to go on a commercial.
Welcome back. Welcome back. We are here with Evelyn, and we are having a really great conversation. I think Kyle was about to ask another question. Were you?
No,
okay.
We can switch it up.
Okay. You ready to switch it up?
Yeah.
Okay. I've been having a lot of thoughts while we've been sitting here. I assume the box will bring it full circle, but that's why I haven't spoken in the first half. I feel something. I believe that the box will probably segue into what I'm going to say. So, in the middle of the box, Evelyn, is a red box. And in that box are questions. If you could take the red box, pick out a question, read it, and answer it, that will bring us to our next phase.
I feel like I need, like, some theme music. Drum roll, please. Okay.
What you got?
So, it says, when was the last time that your reaction or response to something surprised you in a positive way? I don't even know how to answer that. When was the last time your reaction or response to something surprised you in a positive way? I honestly don't know how to answer that question. I'm trying to think of what. Well, So I guess not business related, just personally. My grandfather's been a little bit ill, and the last time we had an issue, like, I didn't freak out. Like, I was just okay with it. I guess that's, yeah. I just had to calm down and realize that, let things hold its course. And then he said that to me later on. He was like, don't worry. He's like, just live your life, So I guess that would be the last time.
I have a question. I guess my question is, what is one emotion or feeling that you feel, but you frequently don't communicate?
That would definitely be my anxiety. So I suffered, and this is interesting because I don't know, you guys make me feel like I just want to just spill my guts, but I usually don't talk about this. So a lot of people don't know unless they're close to me. Like, I suffered from really bad anxiety for a really long time. And I just, like, I had it bottled up. Like, there were some times where I would go like weeks without leaving the house. Like, I was that much. And then, like, let's say if I happened to have an anxiety attack one day and I was going to the post office, okay, no longer going to the post office ever again in life. And like, I literally would not, I didn't go to the post office for years, like years, I kid you not. And it was because I went to a different city. Same thing. Something happened. I was going to pick someone up from the airport one day, and I had, not even getting on a plane, picking someone up, I had an anxiety attack. And I was like, not going to airports anymore. But I remember I had to go, something happened with my son, and I had to get on a plane like really quick, and just mama bear instinct went in, and I just went for it. But I'd still, like, I can look back at it and I'm in a totally different place with it. But the days that I do feel it a little bit, I don't talk about it. Like, I have a tendency to like not let people know I'm feeling anxious, because I don't want them to think like, oh, is this like the present day anxiety, or like your anxiety that you had like a long time ago when it was really, really bad,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you for that segue, Kyle, because it brings me to the question on my paper. I knew it would come. So it may be the same answer, but I would like for you to pick a different one.
Okay.
What is one part of your identity or your story or something that you're trying to figure out now that you don't share because you don't believe that people will be able to truly understand it?
You said one part of
your identity or your story or something that you're dealing with or trying to figure out right now.
Gosh, yeah. See, I was going back for the same answer. Honestly, that's it for me. Okay. I would like to give you a different answer, but I think that's part of it. And I had to make that realization with myself. And I think my business coach was one of the ones who helped me feel comfortable. So, like, I feel like there are no accidents. Like, God brings people into your life for, you don't necessarily know. And sometimes you never find out. But my business coach, she is very successful. I adore her. But she has a chronic illness. So there's a lot of times where, like, I was supposed to meet with her and she had to cancel last minute, or she's got to reschedule things or whatever. And I could see myself in that, because I've had that happen to me so many times before. And I always feel like anytime I have anything happen, I'm like, oh my God, this is the last opportunity I'm ever going to have, because I got to reschedule. And people are like, no, it's like, okay, like, it's life happens. And I think it had, took me having a relationship with her and seeing how she handled it to realize, okay, you can be okay with just being, having that be a part of your life. But again, it's not like I still kind of would prefer not to have to talk about it, but it is a reality. It is a part of my life. So, like, until you identify it and address it, like, it's not going to go away, So, yeah.
I have a thought. And maybe, I don't know, I'm going to just talk through it. So I think a lot of times we go through things, we say they're a part of our lives, we get through them, we continue to move forward because we have work, we have kids, we have all of these responsibilities. And we never really take time to think about how that something really has affected us, right? Because we continue to just move forward in life. And I hear it all the time, whether it's get over it, or, you got to just keep going, or, life goes on, or all of these different terms and sayings that kind of just says, like, don't sit and reflect and feel, just keep moving. What is something in your life that you may have definitely went through, you've gone through it, you've, gotten to a point now, obviously, you're still surviving, right? But you recognize that really played a major role in your either perspective in life or just your overall daily self?
I think that probably would have to be my divorce, because to me, you have to look at, again, going back to similar with the relationship with that contract that I had to look and see, okay, what was your role in this? So you can look at that person and say, you did this, you did that, or whatever, but what was your role in the situation? And I think, and it's like, after you were married for a long time, people don't stay married that long anymore.
No, literally.
So when you're married for a long time and this is just your life for so long, it takes a while for you to unwrap all of that thing. So even like if you're staying together, but you're kind of going through a transition, like everybody goes through that. But I think for me, I had to realize that sometimes the things that are happening is not because of something that I did, you know, and then just taught me how to, like I learned a lot, you know, it taught me how to respect other people's journeys, you know, and, you know, I think about like sometimes like some of the things my ex did, like other people are like, oh, he's awful. And I'm like, no, but I understand why he did it, though. You know, you have to understand people's journeys and know that there's also hope. You know, sometimes people change, sometimes they don't, but it's a part of their journey. And I think you have to, like, I started to understand his journey and his role in my life when I started to understand my stuff that I was dealing with. You know, it's just that we express it in a different way, you know. So it's like, okay, we're both, you know, I call it acting out, you know. So whether that's whether that's like you internalizing it, whatever your action is, you're acting out as a grown up, you know, in a different way.
I do agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that our 8-year-old self or 16-year-old self or 19-year-old self comes up sometimes in conversations or interactions or just different times if you really didn't, I guess, put a pin on it back then, right? I was in therapy one time and I made a response or said something and, you know, she came back and said, you know, how old were you? How did she put it? She pretty much said like, who was that just then that responded? And I was like, what do you mean? And then she broke it down. She was like, and then she came with the question. She was like, when was the first time that you needed to defend yourself like this? And I was like, oh, well, I was 9. And she was like, that's who just came out. I was like, that's good.
Wow, what's her number?
I know. Literally, I was like, that's good. So we're going to go on commercial.
Welcome back. So that's probably our last commercial break, I'm thinking.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask you a question. What's one part of your journey that you still don't understand?
Ooh, that's personal.
I'm searching for something. I don't know what it is, but I see it a little bit.
That's personal, but I really believe in being transparent because you never know like how your story is going to affect other people. So I think the biggest thing for me that I'm still not over would definitely have to be like the demise of my relationship with my youngest stepson. That like I still can't really get, you know, because we were so close. And even through, you know, divorce, you know, you get over that and everything. But, you know, I had 2 boys and my oldest one, we have a great relationship. My youngest one, we don't have a great relationship. Like we don't speak. And it literally like it's taken a long time for me to just be able to look at his pictures and not break down into tears.
Aww.
Yeah. You know, so I don't really understand that. You know, I don't understand what that part of my life was supposed to teach me, you know, and I'll be honest with that. I just, you know, I won't sugarcoat that for people because I know a lot of people deal with that. And I didn't realize a lot of people dealt with that too, you know, just having, you know, going through divorce and having severed ties with their children, you know, you know, and at one point, you know, I even had people tell me, well, that's not, you know, well, he's not your child anyway. That's not your kid. I'm like, first of all, that's my baby. Yeah. You know, so I had a hard time with that, you know, and even, you know, having people say that to me, like it was so hurtful that they would say that, you know, because for one thing, like I just feel like, you know, we need to go back to that notion of just being that village anyway. Like we're all our children, you know, like you don't have to give birth to somebody for you to, like, you should care about everybody's children. You know, when you take care of somebody, you know, that's family. Family's family, you know. Sure. So, yeah, I'm still trying to figure out what that part has meant, you know, like, what am I supposed to learn from that part of my life, you know? Yeah.
That's good. I think it's so good because a lot of, like, I see you as a force, right? And even you started the conversation, you know, communication specialist, worked with, you know, professional athletes, and you've done all these different things, and you had this story. And I think the goal of the podcast is to pull back the curtain right? Because I think a lot of people naturally lead with accomplishments, with titles, with all of these great accolades.
Yeah.
But after all of that, we have to realize that we're just people.
Yes.
You know, I love that village mindset as well. You know, it is the community aspect. And I guess that leads me to my next question. What is one thing that you need in this season that hasn't harvested yet?
I think more time. Yeah, I definitely would love to be able to. So I'm starting to work on trying to meditate. I'm not very good at it, but I still continue to do it, even though like I'm usually, my mind just goes in other directions. But one of the things that I want to do is to be more productive. So not to work to the point where you're tired. Like I've learned to like just take a time out, you know, so even if I want to hit a certain income goal and I haven't done that, I made a promise to myself that I was not going to work my fingers to the bone, because I'm like, you know what, look how much money you did not have and you still are okay, you know, and like I literally have tripled my rates in less than a year. So I'm like, you're going to be okay, you know, so with being a creative entrepreneur, like your brain's just constantly thinking of stuff all the time. So I would like to be able to get to a point where I can be more efficient with my time and be productive without burning myself out.
Exactly.
Yeah, because that's not the way, like that's one of the things that I think I learned early on in business, that I'm not going to be that person.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'll be poor before I do that. And I know I'm not going to be poor. Yeah.
I think we definitely share that. You know, I don't ever celebrate the wins. Ever.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like I may have, like we were talking about earlier, I may have a certain revenue goal that I'm trying to meet. And, you know, I may get $200 off. And then it's just like my whole world's about to crash. But it's just like, dude, look what you did make.
Right.
So I think a lot of times, what would be that message that you give to people that, you know, are setting great goals, but seems to always be like falling a little bit short?
So I think that goes back to, again, evaluating what your role is in that. So for me, I think when I was in a position where I wasn't meeting that, I had to realize, okay, am I being aggressive enough, or am I being too aggressive? You know, because again, people sense your energy, you know, so did I not get an extra client because they just thought I was just too incredibly thirsty? Or they're like, this girl is not who she says she is, you know, especially during the time when I was carrying so much heavy emotional weight. It was like, I'm not the same person that I was. And believe it or not, a lot of those people came back around, you know, later on. Like, you know, so like you said, sometimes it's not, you can't have it. It's just a not right now because you're not ready. And I'm glad, because it's like, I would hate to do somebody a disservice. So I think, you have to think about your role in that in terms of meeting those goals. And then reevaluating. So one of the things I do with my coaching clients is we do like a weekly check-in call. So my partner and I, we switch off. We do every other Monday. And we'll say, you know, what were your top 3 goals at the beginning of the week? You know, even break it down, even if it's something really, really small. At the end of the week, you know, when the next person comes back that next Monday, okay, so what prevented you from doing that? You know, and is that a bad thing? You know? So, you know, because you also have to look at, you know, in terms of business, depending on what industry you're in, okay, is this your time? Like, is this your busy season? Like for me, when I was working with football clients, like June, July, like I can't talk to anybody because I've got you know, they're off, you know, before they go to training camp. Exactly. So this is when we would do our charity camps. So like during the summertime, those were my busy months. So I know that if I don't make my goal November, December, it's just par for the course, because that's not the time when I'm, you know, when my industry is flourishing.
That's it. Yeah. That's good. That's good. You got something?
I do have a question, but if you want to.
No, I got a question, and it's a different question, and I'm interested to see how you answer this. What's one question that we haven't asked yet that you'd like to answer?
This is why I don't let you see the question. This is exactly why.
No, I literally just wrote that down.
But that's like that's one. That's one of the one for no. No, it's one of the ones I told you the other day.
So what is one of the questions? So I'm always inquisitive in knowing people's why, like, you know, even like with you, like if I would ask you guys questions, like, why did you start this? Like, what's your motivation for continuing to do that?
Do it. Yeah. Why did we start the podcast?
Well, actually, no, not even just why you start, but like, what is your motivation that keeps you going to keep doing this?
That's a great question. So neither one of my parents went to college. My father was the breadwinner in my household for first 5 years. And then my mother's been the breadwinner. My mother, she had my sister when she was 13, and, you know, single mom, never had a, you know, father, never had support, grew up in South Jersey projects, and now she's the only black executive for a Fortune 500 company.
Wow.
With no college degree.
Beautiful.
My father, you know, he's lived a life of service, and I've seen how, you know, some of the people that he's coached, some of the people that he's mentored, they're literally in the NBA. Wow. So he's given up a lot to be able to see other people succeed. So that's a part of my why, being able to recognize that my parents sacrificed a lot for me to be here. And I've done everything that they've guided me to do. And now it's time to take care of them the way that they took care of me. I think another thing is I've lived a life of service, you know, serving in schools, you know, volunteering within the community. And I've seen fatherless sons. I've seen fatherless daughters. I've seen, you know, kids that couldn't read, kids that are wearing Jordans but can't tie them, walking through the schools. I've seen injustice within our school systems. I've been profiled. I've seen a lot of different things. I wanted to be the new age W.E.B. Du Bois. I wanted to be the representation of, you know, two parents that sacrificed everything, but their son made it. I wanted to be the representation that you don't have to be an athlete to be successful and to make money and to leave a legacy. And legacy is important to me. It's the only thing that I really think about all the time. My favorite movie is Troy. And why it's my favorite movie is there's a scene specifically on the movie where Achilles is talking to his mother, and she's saying, you know, if you stay here at home, because he's asking her, like, should I go to the war, to the fighting Trojan War, or stay home? And she was like, you know, if you stay here at home, you'll have a beautiful wife, and you'll have you know, kids that love you, and, you know, and then your grandkids will know you and respect you and love you. And over time, your name will fade and you'll be forgotten. And then she said, but if you go to Troy, they'll write stories about you for ages. You'll be one of the greatest warriors to ever live, but you won't make it home. You'll die. I live my life by that because I would be willing to risk it all to be remembered.
Wow.
So that's my why.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Jeez.
Yeah, what you got?
So many things I would love to say to you right now. But she didn't ask me that question. That's your question.
No, it's both of you guys.
Like, that's your question. I need a new question.
For me, my why is going to sound very, like, in the air. I feel like God speaks to me often, like literally and figuratively. I believe that as a person, as a Christian, as whatever, that my reason for being here is for people to be able to see God through me.
Oh, yes.
So everything that I do is with him in mind because he speaks to me. So I hear him. And so Kyle knows, like, I am very specific about everything that I do, like who I'm around, who I allow to have access to me, what decisions I make, what opportunities I accept, like everything. Right. The way that I talk to people, the people that I talk to, what I allow people to see, like all the things that I do. I'm very intentional about those things, calculated even.
Nah, definitely.
And so that's essentially my why. So like everything flows from that goal of people seeing God through me.
I love that.
No, definitely.
Wow.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, like, there was a quote, I can't remember exactly, but it's like, you know, are you listening? You know, God may be speaking to you, but are you listening to hear him? You know, or are you, I think for me, for a long time, I was like changing the translation. I was like, he's saying one thing to me, and I'm like, no, but you say that's not what I said.
Yeah.
Like,
there are so many people saying, like, God is not telling me anything. I'm asking him, you don't like what he's telling you. He's talking to you.
Right.
You don't want to hear what he's saying.
You know, me and Kiana was talking about that literally 2 days ago when we was riding in the car.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was telling her, I think, like, this is the first time in my life that I really feel like I literally hear him speaking, and I see him removing people from my life, and it's so organically, and it's just easy. It's fluid because he's moving them instead of I don't have to have any conversations. Right. But for the first time in my life, I can actively and intentionally see me fighting him. Literally, like I'm like trying to go back and get them, and then it's like God is saying like, nah. So then it's making things worse over time because it's like he's looking at me like, bro, like I got it, like you bugging right now.
Like, let them go.
It's kind of like at the club, like when a fight's about to break off, and then the bouncer comes. It's like, yo, I got it, but you like throw a bottle. Yeah, it's like, and then then there's a riot in the whole. Like that's what it's literally in my life right now, and it's so interesting. I love what you said, changing the translation. We might name this podcast "Changing the Translation." I really like that. So I guess my last question, because this has been amazing.
Yeah, you guys are awesome.
Thank you. You are amazing. What would be, because you're the communication guru. If you were to communicate one last message to the world, this would be the last message that your stepson would be able to hear that would bring him back to you. What would that message be?
Wow, that is profound.
That is.
How can you answer that off the cuff? That is like
time to prepare.
I feel like I'm gonna have to like go back and journal and like really think about what that means.
Can I preface it? Can I challenge you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So time isn't relative. Like time is relative. I think we're not entitled to more time.
Yeah.
So think about if Evelyn only had 60 seconds. You're not thinking about that if you're in a hospital bed.
Yeah.
Think about all those patients that were in hospital beds and only one family member could get in there. Only one. And he's that one family member. What would be your last message to him?
My last message to him, if it was him specifically and really anybody, I guess, remember that God never gave up on you. Like you're still here. No matter what state you're in, if you come into that hospital raggedy, like you're living proof that he has not given up on you. That's it, yeah. Because some days that's all I had. But it got me to this point, and like, yeah. That's all we are. We're here visiting. We're on his timetable. Yep.
That's good. How does that message make you feel, communicating it now?
That actually makes me feel really hopeful, because it also reminds you that even when you're thinking of something like picturing that scenario that could be so painful, like you think about it, you're like, oh wow, think about what that really means. Like he never did give up. So whatever his reason is for that strife or for that, that transition, there is a valid reason. You just may not be aware, but it's like, you ever see that meme with Shaq and he's like throwing the stuff out the way? Like that's what he's doing, So I don't know what he's doing behind me. I have to trust that he's doing it for my own good. Maybe I'll find out one day. My only hope is like, I always say I'm going to be that person that goes to heaven. I'll be like, so remember that time? Like, what was I supposed to be doing? Well, why'd you tell me? That's word. Oh, man. Like, God,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's just, we got to remember that. Yeah.
I got one last question.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
If you could describe your story in one word, what word would you use?
Shenanigan.
I love it.
Yes.
I love it.
I have one that's slightly different.
Okay.
In this season of your life, if you think of it like a chapter in a book, because it kind of is, what would be the title of this season specifically?
That's good.
I think it would be service. And I say all the time, like, especially with the work that I do with the magazine, we are focused on really changing how people look at minorities, so it's like we're trying to take ownership of something that is constantly being met with a challenge all the time. And I'm always saying, I can't believe that I get to live this life where I get to get paid to do this. But again, I feel like, you're equipped with the things that you need, because you can't do it sometimes unless you have, you can only do so much without the finances. Unfortunately, this is how we live, so it is very much coming from a place of service. And I think that is why, just in a short time of me rebranding over the past year and a half, things have exploded, and they're better than they were. Things were good for me before, but they're like 10 times better, like in a very short time, because I'm serving. Yeah.
This is good. Service. Service. Evelyn, this has been such an amazing conversation.
Agreed.
I really thank you for serving us in this discussion. 3 things that you said that really stuck out to me is be yourself. Be yourself even when the world is watching. Never give up, because God has never given up on you.
Yep.
And take time out so that you can recalibrate, refresh, and continue to recharge the world with your calling. We're here with Evelyn, the communication strategist. It's Around the Way podcast.